meeting to order. And first order of business is the approval of minutes of the meeting on June 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Who's recording tonight?
Me.
Neil.
Oh.
But
And
I gotta get my commitment, I just
When
need
you
a
get-
commitment to the calendar first.
Okay.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we have to look at the minutes of July 2nd. I need a motion.
I move we approve the minutes of July 2nd.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then lastly, on the minutes is the meeting of July 22nd, 2013.
Whose turn is it?
A motion.
Oh, move to approve.
Okay, is there a
Although I
second?
wasn't there.
Second.
Oh, you weren't
Oh,
there?
no, I wasn't
You
that
were
one,
there.
sorry, it was the second one I wasn't there. That's why I didn't move it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like the minutes to indicate perhaps in the area before the sentence, demolition cost for asbestos removal will cost $130,000. It should indicate that the board requested an explanation of why the bids were so much higher than the estimates that we had been provided, and that was the basis of substantial discussion at the meeting. And the focus was additional asbestos costs, but the minutes should reflect that the board did scrutinize that.
Okay. And Neil's noting that?
I'm getting there, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, Jeff?
Nothing further.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I apologize, we should do some introductions before we go on. I know that you introduced yourself to everyone here at the table, but I don't know if you just want to say hello or
Sure.
who you are to the other folks that are here at the meeting.
Well, I'm very pleased to say I'm Stephanie Taylor. I'm the co-principal within Woodley, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.
So far, we're really happy to have her.
Yeah. Well, we all welcome you and are happy that you're here.
Did I hear some conditions there?
No. I have full faith.
Okay. On to public communication. Hi, Karen.
Okay. A couple of us met with PPE, and we'd like to present a letter to you and see if we can create a volunteer fundraising effort to not really the big picture of the track and field, but at least to start it. So anyway, we want to thank you for the board for their effort in funding a track, in striving to fund a track and field through a bond. On July 30th, a small group met with Pete Manine to discuss a volunteer-led effort to construct a track and field. Immediately, we would like to approach the contractor who is awarded the bid on the softball fields to ask him to volunteer time to dig a jumping pit and a shot put circle. This will be located to the left of the Rowan Memorial. The jumping pits and shot put circle do not require drainage, but minimal excavation, cement, and sand fill. Long term, we're seeking your support to organize the Friends of Track and Field and begin a fundraising and donation effort within our community and beyond to complete a grass track. This would include the needed draining of the fields, crown, and a grass turf. We estimated the cost to be around $200,000. We supporters of the track and field effort feel confident that we can spearhead this with volunteers and donations.
Wow, that's ambitious, but that's wonderful.
I thought Jeffrey would be here tonight, but
Right.
oh, there you are. But you know, having a grass track would be very helpful, and we have grown a track team that has been pretty competitive in Vermont. I like track because it really allows kids to focus on individual events. Not all kids have the ability to play in that team sport environment. So yeah.
Pete, do you want to add anything to that, or want to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, I was, Carol and Jeff, approached about, okay, here's the deal, we didn't, the bond didn't come through, everybody knows that, but we still have a track program without a home. What can we do to, make this work? And, looking at being ambitious, but not being, where shooting for the stars, type thing. We're probably not going to get there, fundraising, just trying to create, manageable goals. And the first start is, minimal cost in terms of putting in up there where we can do long jump, where they can do triple jump. Because right now the only time they really can do those is when they go and when they compete. At least you can mark out a 100-yard dash and you can do that, on a field or whatnot, but you can't jump into a pit in the grass. So that's kind of the start, and then eventually, looking at getting, and Jeff can explain it better because I've never actually seen one, but a grass, track kind of having, the leg work done in terms of having a flat surface where, they can run without, the ups and downs and the, the hummocks, as I call them, what the new word, ankle rollers. So that's kind of where Jeff came in, his idea of a grass track. So.
And the grass track also, my guys around almost 6 straight months. It gives them a soft surface so that by the time we hit states and outdoor, we're not all beat up. Our guys are fresh, their legs are healthy. Most other teams that you see when they hit states, they're all taped up and they're limping, and most of my guys come in fresh and all that because of the surface that we train on. So having a grass track allows us to know exactly what our distances are, still have a soft surface that makes sure that my guys are healthy by the end of the season.
When you're looking at this grant, and are you also looking, at the and when it's completed, hopefully you get all the money, as far as maintaining it, what's involved in that, and is that part of what you're looking at as well? Or is that going to be something that we then will have to take over doing?
No, I think mowing it is, mow it anyway.
Okay.
So that's not going to be an added cost. The added cost is getting it in there, and I don't think the conversation hasn't necessarily went out looking for money, but we have a lot of people in the community that have, expertise on certain things, and if we can get people not to necessarily volunteer to do the whole grand, scheme, but to take, bits of it and be willing to take it and kind of have a collaborative group effort, tackle it that way. And that's where, Carol came in and is working on a letter with another community member to, send out to those different landscapers and excavators that are in the community and see if they'd be willing to not necessarily donate money, but donate their time and expertise.
That's great.
So what kind of drainage do you envision would be necessary to make it happen?
I don't think there's necessarily drainage, per se. If somebody's willing to put some in, some kind of perimeter drain, but more of getting a grade so that way you don't have low spots in the middle of, the grass track. So, you're not running through puddles, which are going to turn to mud and, that type of stuff. So. I think the drainage part was the field itself needs to be grounding, some kind of drainage around there, but the track itself, which would be starting from scratch, would be able to have it crowned and have it sloped correctly.
I think that's great. That's fine.
Where would it be again?
I'm assuming around the varsity field is still gonna be, the spot to have it in terms of the least amount of excavation work, with the hills, because it can go a little bit further back before you run into the ropes course. But
Are there any other questions?
I really appreciate the effort. I think it will be well received by the community, and I hope it's part of an overall process that the building committee and the school can use to make incremental progress on all the goals that were laid out in that broader bond issue. And so that actually would be one question I would have. Do you see the work you're doing as leading towards perhaps a grander plan at some point, or might we have to back up a little bit from what you're doing if we were to revisit that grander plan?
yeah, I mean, that would be my hope. I'm not exactly, I don't know if I have the same vision that was brought to me in terms of it, but yeah, my goal would be if we're going to look to do something like this and people are going to be volunteering to make this happen, then when we build the space for the grass track, let's build it so that way if one day we can get that money to put in a real track, we can save the cost because we've already got the base, the foundation, laid and in place. So that would be my hope, that if this, comes forward, if we have enough people that are willing to do things and it looks like it can, come to fruition, then we try and tackle it where what we're doing now leads towards something grander, not towards where we do something now and then we gotta tear it out and start over down the road.
That's great.
Really appreciate the effort.
Mhm.
We thought a 2 million goal was a little bit too much. We like that.
That's a little.
And if someone wants to write us a check, we'll take it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, did you pick the place for the pits because they're not being, that area isn't being used now, or? Because I would think you'd want the pits closer to where the track is.
It wouldn't tear up everything for the fall sports.
Yeah.
And if you go to other schools, sometimes you're going, across 2 fields and across the road to get to javelin.
Yeah.
So, we're used to traveling in order to get to our event. So
Yeah, I understand. It would be,
it wouldn't matter.
most of the pits are like near the track, so.
Most of the nice schools have their pits near the track.
Well, this is a great step. I was a head coach of track at Winooski High School, and we didn't have a track. And we eventually got a track because the local gravel pit donated most of the materials. So we had a stone track, not cinder, stone. But, it's a great way to get the community involved. But it does take time. Once you have the materials and the labor, you need site work. And like Peter was saying, the site work is probably the most important part of it.
And we've been on track since I ran here, so
Yeah.
we're patient.
Okay.
And we're still competitive, so whatever it takes, we'll still
Yeah.
keep going this team. And we'll get better every year. Hopefully the track will catch up with us.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
And with hopeful thinking, Fairhaven, right? They did their goal. They have a beautiful track, and they did it all with fundraising. But they started with a simple track, so it's kind of like you have a school out there that has been through the steps, but we don't even have the basic yet to start with. So
It's really great. Thank you very much. Is there an educational presentation? No.
Laura?
Yes.
I think before you go forward, and I don't want to speak for you, Carol, I think she was looking for from you guys to, go forward and start asking those, those different landscapers, those excavators, to start kind of the ball rolling. Didn't want to necessarily, my thought was that she didn't want to necessarily go forward with things unless you guys were okay with
Yeah,
moving
okay,
forward.
yeah, you're right. We don't really, do we need to vote on it or just have a consensus?
Consensus.
The sense of the board is that this is a
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
you know, all the heads going up and down was good for me, that's a
If I could
consensus.
just echo Jeff's statement about, as you get the plan together, please, bring it in front of the building committee, because the folks who are doing that are also actively looking at sequencing which pieces of improvement go where, and kind of trying to dovetail money into that over the course of the next few years. So,
My comment was just consistent with Neil's, is that whatever Carol and the group are gonna do, we want it to be consistent and build upon sort of the master plan.
Right, so well, there should be good communication between the two. And it'd be great if you could come back, at some point, just to let us know how things are going. That would be good, just for an update.
So are you doing this on your own? Is that what I
Well, we
understand?
wanted, right now, it was, Brad Castillo was part of it, and so was Tammy Stearns. Once you give the okay, we didn't wanna pull a lot of people in, but we're hoping to pull a lot of people in now. And let them know that we have the okay and that we have a small plan. And, meet with organizations like the Rotary, and we did make a list of excavators, and hopefully that, they'll want to get together and piece it out, like, instead of asking one person to do everything. But I don't really know what that looks like, so hopefully we'll find someone.
This is another thought too, I don't know if you would want to do this, but I was approached one time in the store, Shaw's or something, and it was actually the town clerk from Ferrisburg, and he was saying in relation, maybe you could approach each of the towns, and maybe some of the people in the town's crews would be willing to help too, and I don't know if they'd be able to use the equipment, and that's a possibility to talk to them.
And the reason I was asking is, I would think this would fit perfect with a booster club.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So we have consensus?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
great, definitely,
All the
thank you.
heads? Okay. And Wayne, did you have anything else you wanted to add? All right. Any board communication? Oh,
Just a little bit.
sure.
I mean, for other things that didn't get passed with the bond, I mean, as a board, would you see fundraising efforts to be, the same? I mean, in the kitchen, we've talked about having, just recently, with the community group or with the parent-teacher group, of having a fundraiser for a new oven. There's a lot more planning to that, to really present it, but I mean, would other efforts, I think the fear that a lot of us have had is we don't want to sabotage any further bond vote, but we need equipment.
Right.
Before someone, gets hurt in there, we really need to, I think, show the community that it's necessary, and maybe everyone can, bond together, and not
Well,
necessarily in the bond
Right.
sense, but.
Well, I think the building committee, I don't know if they want to address those kinds of issues.
Yeah, I think I can offer that later on in the agenda. We're gonna have an update on the facility. We'll learn a little bit more about the roof, and then we can ask some questions about the thinking about that as well. I'm sure that would be welcome, but the kitchen is sort of high on the priority list.
Okay,
Thank you.
not to, thank you.
Okay, any other board communications? Or are there any?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we'll also get there under facilities project, but I just want to enter in that I'm hearing a lot of scuttlebutt about the auditorium.
Right, that's down.
Under facilities project update?
Yes.
Yeah. So just letting you know that I'm hearing from my constituents.
Okay, good.
Are we still on board communications? Yes. I checked last week, website did not yet reflect Stephanie joining us. Will that be updated shortly?
yes.
Yes.
Are there,
As long as she agrees to stay.
are there any first day activities that are planned as part of beginning school?
Yeah, I think both Ed and I will talk to that during the administrator's report.
And then what's the program for in-service?
I can talk about that now a little bit too, or that was one of the topics that I was.
Great.
Let's get to that.
Okay. All right, now go to the board reports of the board, so.
I'm going to speak to a couple things. And we can certainly both give input into the in-service, which is our responsibility to develop. And it's pretty well along. We have a professional development committee by negotiated contracts that's district-wide. And we're just developing the proper interface with that committee, really. But we've got a pretty full deck to start the year with. We'll get back to that. I was going to start with building stuff and even part of the auditorium question here. And had a conversation with Mr. Robert Worley. The 4 great areas we discussed, we're developing a 5-year plan for repair and replacement for the entire facility, grounds and buildings, and try to cost that out as best we can. Scheduling the auditorium carpet and upholstery cleaning. Committing an inventory of chairs in the middle school, and because they have a higher need perhaps than us, but not much, and then the high school area, and to schedule an inspection by a certified theater rigger to include lighting and stage-related areas from the proscenium back. And so those were the things that were Bob was charged with. And so far, he scheduled the carpet and upholstery to be cleaned in the auditorium. 27th of August, cost is $6,500. And then we've also contacted the, I believe that's Reynolds Curtains, and they said that they can clean, it looks like about 3/5 of the curtains, mend them, fireproof them, and put them up again, but they are of the opinion that the rigging is not up to code. Now, they're loath to say that it's unsafe or safe. They just say it doesn't meet code, and the thing that it would need to make code, and I don't know how this works engineering-wise because I'm an English major, but they talk about I-beams in the ceiling to stabilize the rigging, to bring it up to code. And I'm not up to snuff on that.
Add a little something on that?
Sure.
And we'll get back into the auditorium, I'm sure, a little bit later in the agenda. But I read that letter from the curtain hanger people. And my understanding of what that letter said is that they noted code deficiencies and that they were absolving themselves of any liability
That's
that
exactly
they
what
may
it is.
incur as a result of their installation due to the code deficiencies. They made no statement about the safety of the equipment though.
I think I was clear about that, just then.
Colin Lindbergh.
I just wanted to be real clear about that because that relates to what I'm hearing from folks about the auditorium status right now.
Okay, so I think the snafu right now is the, talking about cleaning, when we take the curtains out, it wouldn't do them any good to bring them back and put them over dirty rigging. And so we'd have to clean high, as I understand. Otherwise, it could be counterproductive. You just get the curtains dirty again if you didn't clean up high. I'm unsure as to what that process looks like. Again, I'm not a building engineer, but the concern is, of course, is that we're going to be cleaning right before we start construction on the roof, and we don't know what the unforeseen consequences might be. Whether or not that ripping off the roof causes things in the ceiling to like sugar down on top of us, dirt, particles of anything. We don't know. So we're anticipating cleaning on the 27th, and then I think the queasiness is what happens if during the roof work, all of a sudden we start getting stuff sifting down on top of the cleaned areas. So that is a concern, and I'm sure that's a big concern. Bob's also contacted BMI, which was a company that had earlier agreed to inspect for safety the riggings for $1,000. What Bob was trying to do with Reynolds was trying to get the same service for nothing with the promise of, cleaning the curtains. He was trying to be cost efficient. But then again, in the end, Neil, you're absolutely right. The letter does not address safety, it just addresses code and their own liability. And that's absolutely right. So whether or not BMI comes in, and whether it's advisable for BMI to come in and say, wow, that's safe, don't worry. Or, yikes, you guys can't use that rigging. I mean, it's kind of a a little bit of Russian roulette there.
You got a professional guy up there every year running that show. Dave is up there, he's rigging trusses, he's using all those stage lights as well as the big truss lights that get installed. I mean, he knows the status. If he was really uneasy about those, he probably wouldn't let kids up there work on it. Fair?
I don't know. I don't know if it's fair or not.
I didn't hear who you were talking about.
The fella, I forget his last name, but the gentleman who always rigs the lighting for the productions, it's the same guy year after year after year. He's the fellow who's trained all the students who have done that. And he, I've got to assume if that stuff was substandard and couldn't support what he was trying to do, that he would let us know. Because he is paid, by the production to do that work. And he's having students go up there, so.
All I can say is Karen and Sue have been the ones that have been telling me for 8 years that the place is unsafe. I have not seen any, I wouldn't know the evidence. I would rather walk on hot coals than be involved in a musical, but I've not seen the evidence myself. I'm just going by what people are saying, and the Reynolds company going, it's not up to code. Well, I'm sure it's not up to code, but whether that's has anything to do with safety, I don't know. And has anybody asked that gentleman, I don't even know who that is, directly, whether or not he's got reservations about the rigging? I mean, I don't even have the name.
Okay. I think we need to kind of discuss it, but I don't know if you want to go on to your next thing and we can come back to the auditorium when we're going to have the facilities project update, or just, I know we're not going to not discuss it.
Right, I'm just, that was the first thing up on my report, and I know enough to be dangerous probably, but on the other hand, I mean, it's looking like a $10,000 expenditure if we want to feel less than queasy opening that up. Now, we don't have any problems at all opening it up for use for assemblies, for professional development purposes, because we're not going to be using the proscenium. We're not going to be anywhere near this, any of that
Would
stuff.
you have to use it for open house?
Yes, because as long as we don't go up on stage and like we did last year. And
27th, you said?
yes, 27th is the scheduled cleaning.
That would limit using it for the in-service, but we can get around that.
Okay, well, I can also tell them to postpone that, because it's not dirty enough that we can't use it. It's just dirty enough that we need to clean it.
Right.
What's Dave's last name?
I'm pulling real hard to get that. It will come before the end of the meeting.
Thanks, because I really don't know him at all.
I can find out. There's a young man at home who will know.
So is the auditorium open?
Not right now.
So why is that?
Actually, I can speak to that because I agreed with Bob when we got the initial report. Both Ed and I were out of the building. I was on vacation. I couldn't reach it at the time, and in the absence of any information about whether or not it was actually safe or not, and there's a great deal of community use of the building, sometimes without anyone knowing it, and my concern was that it really wasn't safe and that a community member or a community group would go in there, pull down the screen, and something might occur. So I suggested we lock it. I just found the email, it was right around July 10th or 11th.
July 9th was the note that he sent you guys.
Yeah, so I think I responded on the 10th. And I said, I suggest you lock it up, and then when we return, we'll figure out a plan for going forward. Never really understanding the scope of all these other complications, and reports that had come, about the cleaning, about the curtains, and in all honesty, we just haven't moved forward with a plan yet. I mean, because there are all these moving pieces.
There's layers.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's every time we try to fix something, you fix the plan, that is, not anything physical, then something else comes up like, well, what if the roof work causes more particulate, movement in the auditorium? Should we wait, postpone the cleaning, and so on and so forth? So, I mean, it has been a difficult situation. And Bob feels like, the guy from Reynolds goes, yikes, and Bob's saying, well, if somebody gets hurt, who is liable? Well, he's the first level of liability. Steph and I are the second. Tom's the third, you're the fourth, and or vice versa, depending how they construct the suit. But that's what stemmed the original concern, was really, is it safe? So I think probably my advice to Bob is go ahead with spending the $1,000 and getting BMI to actually do the thumbs up, thumbs down on the safety question, with your permission.
I think we'll come back to
Okay,
that
I'd like
during
to
our.
move off it. But that's the plan. I just want, for instance, Jeff's asked what kinds of steps are we taking, and we have taken steps, and they may not be the right ones, but on the other hand, we're making movement. So I'd like to talk about AYP. We've got our AYP determination for the No Child Left Behind testing. We are on second year improvement now. We did not we barely missed our goals, but as you know, next year's goal, we're supposed to be perfect. Every school in the United States is supposed to be perfect and gain 500 in all the areas. And I can humbly tell you that I don't think there's going to be anybody in the United States make it without, unless you're in Georgia somewhere. That may be an inside joke, I'm not sure. But
Tony Bennett?
yeah, they changed the last test down there or something. We're not bad, but we didn't make the progress that the federal government asked us to make in both reading and math, and specifically our free and reduced lunch scores are not what they should be, quite. So in our reading index, we're no for free and reduced, and in both reading and math. And that's why we didn't make AYP. Now, free and reduced is an interesting calculation, whether or not it's those kids in the depressed socioeconomic status didn't do as well as they should have, and didn't do as well as the non-depressed socioeconomic status kids. So that's why we're on AYP again. We did well on other measures. We did really well on participation, graduation rate, regular student, that's a terrible thing to say, non-free and reduced lunch students, we did fairly well. But at the end, we're still on second year improvement. Now, to balance that idea a little bit, I'd like to, I don't know, did I do this last time? Huh? It was too early. I'd just like to point out the U.S. News and World Report high school rankings for the state of Vermont, for the nation, and gold and silver medal schools in their metric make the top schools in every state. So we're a silver medal school nationally, and we came in 9th in the state of Vermont. There's 60 high schools who are in the top 15, according to U.S. News and World Report. I'm not under any illusions. And just to be completely transparent, the metrics are suspect to me, because the top 9 are Montpelier, 1, Oxbow, Lake Region, Arlington, Colchester, which is the biggest school in there, Green Mountain, Randolph, Northfield, and Vergennes were all gold and silver medals. You know, you don't see Middlebury, CVU, Mount Mansfield, Essex, South Burlington, all the classical big good schools that always claim to be the best high school in the state. Not throwing any darts, it's just that all the big schools didn't get it and a lot of the smaller schools did. What's that? U32. We did better than a district that Steph used to work for. So we got a silver medal. Our national rank is 2,034, according to U.S. News and World Report. There are, of course, well over 100,000 schools in the United States. So that's a bit of good news. And even though I don't necessarily trust their metrics, we also got the SAT scores, and I can't give you copies of the SAT scores unless the youth involved give a waiver. But I can give you some generalizations. We had some amazingly strong boards. We had one person got a 710 in reading, a 680 in math, and a 650 in writing, and that's gold medal right there. That's really strong. A little weak in reading. We had a lot of kids that have improved by retaking, and this is a message that has to come from us as well as all teachers. But we had one kid that went from 500, high 500s to high 600s with 2 retakes, and jockeyed himself into a position to get into a really pretty good school. So it looks reasonable, but what worries me, and from my background and preparation, that reading is okay, math is fairly strong statewide, and writing's fairly weak. So that holds as a generalization
Based on the SAT scores
of our kids for last year.
When I had an opportunity to look at the SAT scores and what they meant and the percentiles and so forth when I looked at my own sons, I noted that the new test, and I forget whether that's reading or composition or what,
It's writing.
it's universally lower.
It
A
is.
kid scoring in the 720s in math is at the 90 to 95th percentile. That same percentile was down around 680, 670 for that test, so it's scoring differently.
Yeah, and we're lower than the national average. That's why I'd be concerned. But I've got a little bit of modified good news, and we also got the PSAT NFSQT, which is the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test scores back, and in determining the meaning of words, we're at the national average and slightly below the state average. In author's craft, we're below both state and national average. In reasoning and inferencing, we're at the state average and under the national average. In organization and ideas, we are above the state average and at the national average. In understanding literary elements, which is interesting, is that we scored higher than both the state and nation. That's in the literacy area. In number and operations, we scored higher than the state and the nation. Algebra and functions, we scored higher than the nation and the state. In geometry and measurement, we scored higher than the nation and the state. And in data statistics and probability, we scored greater again than the nation and the state. So those are our young kids just starting out. Problem solving, we're beyond the national and state average. Representation, beyond. Reasoning, beyond. Connections, beyond. And communication, beyond. That's all under math. So our math department has done a tremendous job, and it gives the lie to a lot of information that you get through Nickelby, that we're failing to meet our goals. And then you look at this and you go, further comparisons is that under grammar, we're beyond the state average and slightly below the national average. In grammatical structures, we're below both. In managing phrases and clauses in a sentence, we're greater than either the national or state. Recognizing correctly formed sentences were slightly less than both. And we met the state average in the relationships of sentences and paragraphs. So, really, it sort of balances that disappointment that you got for being on AYP. But if it is indeed free and reduced lunch that's kicking us down the steps every year, that means we've got to still work for greater equity and make sure that all our kids get an opportunity to improve and to learn, and that we can't be elitist in our approaches. We've got to challenge the really strong students, and we've got to challenge the struggling students, and we've got to bring that free and reduced lunch up, and we know it's possible because other schools do it. So there's a lot of data there, and there's a lot. I can show you the next time. I'll bring you a copy of the PSAT stuff, but unless everybody in the school and that's gone off to college signs a release, I can't actually show you the SAT sheets. And the AP scores. You want to read them? Because your school's going to be responsible for these someday.
So I just have a couple of emails that we received over the summer from AP Calculus scores. 12 students scored 5s, 2 students scored 4s, and 1 student scored 3. And I'm assuming that's the entire cohort that took the test?
That's the entire cohort.
And so that's AP Calc,
That's
and
crazy. That's good.
AP English scores. I don't have numbers. I have in the report from the teacher. I have 36% scored 4 or 5s. 30 students took the test. I'm sorry. I'm reading from an email. 36% of them scored a 5 or a 4. Actually, 56% scored 3 or better. 15% scored 1s. 10% scored 1s. 33% scored 2s. So I can try to get the numbers for you. This is just the way Michael.
Over 50,
yeah, Michael did the math.
Yeah, he is an English teacher. Over 50%. That's a remarkable improvement in our AP performance in English. And is that AP in comp or
It just says AP English.
Yeah, I think it was AP Language and Composition. That's the tougher of the 2 courses, actually. But we've gone from having a vast minority of kids passing, or with a 3, 4, 5 in the AP in English. We've always been good in calculus. To now, we're above 50% and growing. I think our English department is improving by leaps and bounds. So, thank you. And I don't know the others.
Ed, one question.
Sure.
What percentage of our student population is free and reduced lunch?
That's
About 30.
It's about 30. It is actually, thank you, it's actually much higher than that. But kids come here and don't want to participate in the free and reduced lunch after they've left 6th grade. Sometimes it's actually the transition between 8th grade and 9th grade, and I can't explain that particularly well. But they're embarrassed, or their parents have lost interest in overseeing that kind of thing. I can't really speak to that, but what's the city?
Vergennes elementary is 50, right?
That's right,
How
50%.
is it that they're embarrassed? I mean, what causes that embarrassment?
There's nothing there,
I think it's past. I think it's past where you used to have to come up to the front and say, and it was like a big red flag, where now it's pretty anonymous.
It's anonymous.
So then how is it, if it's anonymous, then how is it embarrassing?
I'm only
It
positive.
may be the parents who have to document the need.
Parents still have to.
Right, I know they have to fill out the
application, so-
paperwork because they have to show their income.
Right.
I know it's not unique to the school. We had the exact same
Right.
phenomenon. We could track the rates at our elementary schools and then see it go down by 10 points or more at the official recorded rate at the high school level.
And I
The
only,
reason for my question was just to try to get
Right.
since going back to the AYP, what percentage of the school population?
Right.
It's probably closer to 55% if we just passed along what we know from the elementaries.
I'm positing that embarrassment piece by the fact that Rose does a great job of follow-up, and she followed up, I don't know how many kids, 6, 8, whose parents said, oh no, we did the paperwork, we gave it to Joey to give to you. never made it to us. So I'm positing that that's true, but I don't know. So I apologize if I misled in any way. I
Can I
don't
just
know.
one last thing about AYP? Oh,
I had a question about what you just said, but go ahead.
go ahead.
So you say that we know the 30% is what we're going to be judged against, not against something else. We'll probably have more than that, but that's what what do you want to call it? The AYP is going to take into consideration the known ones.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And interestingly, it doesn't, like to say two things to that. One is that means that other sample of free and reduced kids did okay. They didn't drag our other population down. And two, 2 years when we've analyzed it, it hasn't been a function of free and reduced lunch and poverty. 1 year, it was all the boys flunked in that cohort, and all the girls were fine. It was a function of gender. So, and another year, it was just the opposite. The girls did really poorly, and the boys did well, and that was a function of gender, not necessarily poverty. So, remember that Diane Ravitch helped design this a long time ago. She's since backed off and said it's a bad idea. But this idea about free and reduced lunch is designed for Houston and San Antonio. So they'd have, let's say, I don't know, 12,000 free and reduced lunch kids in a class testing. And we've got 12 to 22. And we're being whacked for the same percentages, and it's unrealistic. And Senator Leahy's been saying for years that rural schools and rural states should have a different mechanism for AYP, but it hasn't taken root. So I don't know if I'm just throwing that out. Finally, we have. I'm going to let Steph talk about. We had an administrative retreat, which was successful. We had also a 3-day retreat down in Killington for the VPA, the Vermont Principal Association Leadership session, and that was very good. She'll tell you about that. I just remind you about S-130 is now law, and that means that we have about a year to develop a mechanism for providing a personalized learning plan for every student in 7th grade. And they're still hashing out the details if we have to do it for all 6 grades. We're hoping not. But it falls into place next year. So a lot of our work over this year has got to be how to, we've got a lot of the framework already done because of the student conferencing in the middle school and because of the freshman, mapping that we do for PBGRs. But that's got to be a lot of our work this year. Just like a lot of last year was Green Mountain Star. Now we got to get ready for this legal mandate. And we don't know how that's going to look yet. Also that the educational quality standards have been sort of adopted by the state board. They've been approved but not adopted. And there's a lot of work went into that. It's going to radically change the way it supports S-130, for instance, which calls for personalized learning plans, blended learning. I wish Mrs. Coughlin were still here. Blended learning, early college, and dual enrollment. All those things are very, very tricky in a traditional high school to figure out how you get credits and where and how they relate to your graduation plan. So the PLPs have got to reflect all that stuff, and it is going to be part and parcel of our standards of practice starting next year. So there's a lot of stuff going on in education right now.
And added to that, by the way, as of this year, students who have not graduated, gotten a diploma, regardless of their age, are eligible to participate through the school in dual enrollment. So that will be that's a significant change.
That's instead of adult basic learning.
Instead of adult learning, they will fall, those folks who would fall into that category would fall under the change in the process and just become a student again of the high school, and through the various pathways that Ed was describing, be able to achieve diploma. So.
What was the age limit before, 19?
I'm thinking 20, 21. Oh, okay. No, it's not going to matter. Okay.
Maybe great
policy, is there any budget implication to us?
Well,
Are we
you
gonna
know,
have
I'm not sure yet, but
a
I,
horde of
I
folks
imagine
in the dual enrollment side?
if our enrollment increases because of folks in that position, so does our ADM. If our ADM increases, our funding should follow logically increases as well.
For now.
But most of the Senate, most of S-130 doesn't kick in for 2 years. So they're carrying the ball on dual enrollment, and they're reimbursing us for that. But after 2 years, it's in our lap.
Right, that's
And
right.
it's definitely going to be a change in our costs.
Tuition.
Yes, to my tuition. So that's all I have to say.
Stephanie, do you want to just, can you hold a minute? 'Cause
Sure.
we're going to go back to, did you have, I know you're here as public, did you have anything that you?
Can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand, are you here for public comment opportunity? I mean,
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
David Ambrose. He'd call
okay,
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
yeah, I called and asked for that.
Right, so we or have already had the public, but I'd like to go back because you're here.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I tried to be here for 6:30.
We start at 6, but that's fine.
Well, I really was late, wasn't I?
That's fine, but go
I've
ahead.
done it too.
Huh?
I've done it too.
Okay. I guess I had a couple of questions. One is, are we tying into the Vermont gas if it comes to Vergennes?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I do know that the gas company marked off our access point on our property and recorded it. I mean, that's all I know, but it wasn't from our end, it was from their end.
Well, I don't know who makes that decision, but I think you should be proactive and do it.
Haven't heard anything on
Huh?
it. Have not heard anything
Right.
in regard to it.
Well, it probably won't happen until you do something.
Yeah.
You know? That was,
First thing,
Huh?
just for what it's worth, they gotta permit the line first.
no, I understand all that, but if it does come to Vergennes, and whether it does or not, I don't know, but if it does, we should be taking advantage of that cost impact.
David, my
And-
understanding is all of the city will have.
I'm sorry, what?
access. My understanding is that all of the city will have access.
Yes, but I don't think the mayor would say, hey, school board, you better sign up. I think it's you people who say, hey, we want gas.
Just for what it's worth, and we'll probably get there when we talk about facilities in that part of the agenda, which is coming up.
Okay, I'm
But
sorry.
there's been some really interesting investigations as to the energy efficiency opportunities in the school. So we should definitely filter that in, because we're spending a lot of money on fuel oil, a lot.
Yeah, right, so maybe there's things you can do, you know, if you gotta convert the gas boilers or whatever, you should be planning on that.
I did that at my house, and the savings are substantial to
Yeah.
hitch into the gas pipeline.
Yeah. Are you from around here?
I live up in Jericho.
Okay, all right. I know the people up in St. Albans area, they love it. Even though they're on propane right now, but they're gonna go to natural gas. Anyway, the other comment that I had, I guess is more of a question. I'm wondering if there is any plan that you people work to, maybe a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 25-year plan, that sets some objectives for our school system. That's the question. And if there is no plan, I would suggest that we have one. There's gotta be at least a 1-year plan. Right?
If I can answer that from the principal's point of view, yeah, we really do have 1-year plans, but what we've realized and what the boards help us, formulate is the need for a 5-year plan, for repair, replacement for the whole facility, and to be more strategic. And I think you guys have been talking about developing a strategic capital fund for, further projects and things like that. But I think we have to have a much more closely articulated 5-year plan, and that's what our buildings and grounds superintendent has been charged with officially. So by the end of September, he says he thinks he can have at least the scaffolding of a 5-year plan.
David, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah,
Or
I'm-
are you asking about the strategic direction of the educational program?
That's exactly it. Where are we headed and how are we gonna get there? I mean,
You're talking about the school and the education, you're
I'm
talking
talking-
about the building and the facility.
as a taxpayer and a voter, we do two things, putting you people, we give you the responsibility for giving our kids the best possible education that you can give them. And that's your stewardship for that. The other stewardship is managing our money, our tax money. I want to know how you're going to get our students ready in 20 years from now, because I know, and it's already been published in the paper, that you're going to go for some massive amount of money, a bond, in another 3 years. But we don't have a plan. Is the plan to business as usual? If it is, you're not going to get any of that money. I can tell you right now, the voters out there want you to be stewards of our money. And if you don't have a plan to say, hey, this is where we're going to be 25 years from now with this $15 million bond, and it's probably going to be that if you take what we're going to recover by not paying for the existing one plus inflation, it's going to be up in that area, if it's not even more. And are you going to just revote the old plan? I see some, you know, I think we need to make, you as the board, you as educators, need to put together a plan that has some specific objectives to fix problems we have in our school system here, and it's also a problem in the whole state. We've got underfunded benefits by, I don't know, $800 million. We're short. I don't know, it's probably $1 billion short on pension money. You're talking $2 billion that we don't have money for, and you've been covering all this stuff with federal money that comes in, a little here, a little there. We can modify how we pay our insurance, and hopefully this is going to happen, this is going to happen. We need a plan to fix a couple of things. One, we need to improve our student ratio. We got one teacher per 4 students now. I think that's a number. I know it's the right number, not. I heard it was 4 to 1. Whatever it is, it needs to be something like 60 to 1. And you shouldn't choke at that. What you should do is look at someone like Kurt, who knows how to make modular buildings and sell them, and distribute our educational system to where the students are, and make it more in tune with what their technological skills are. I think the students that go to the school are far beyond what, technically, they're really strong kids. I mean, they know how to, like an 8-year-old, pick up an iPad, and he's texting this and texting that and doing this, that, and the other thing. I don't even know how to begin to use it. But that knowledge in these kids, we need to sign up for that and use what technology we have and what we're going to have down the road to fix unfunded budgets, replace students, replace teachers only if they're really absolutely needed. We need to get rid of some of our teachers. We have too many teachers. We got too much long-term commitments to retirement funds and all that sort of thing. We need to bring that under control. And if you people don't do it, it ain't never going to happen.
David, I don't disagree with some of the things you said. Some of the circumstances that you're talking about, I think you're certainly we need to hear it, but I think the people that really need to hear it are in Montpelier, who set standards.
But that's
for
where leadership comes in. I mean, you need to fix these problems, and we all look to you people for that leadership. And I don't see it. If all you're doing is spending money for the status quo, it ain't gonna happen. I don't think the voters will do that.
I don't think that's the case.
With all respect, sometimes it's hard to see, how we might lead or advocate. For instance, I've testified twice in front of the combined education committees in the last 3 years. And, I've also worked in developing the educational quality standards as a commission member. And those are pretty much invisible to the public, but we don't ignore the cost efficiency. We certainly concentrate as principals on the educational program, and I can assure you that I'm 6 or 7 years in front on the educational program of progression down the road toward our goals.
Can you share those goals?
Sure. I mean, but within another 4 school years, we will be graduating kids on the basis of performance-based graduation requirements and not the amount of time they sit in the seat in the classroom. And that means that they're going to be doing things, for instance, if you've got a kid that's very strong in technology, and you say, okay, you've got to prove yourself in, in math reasoning, scientific reasoning, communication skills, technology skills. You as a world citizen, as a local citizen, you've got to produce things that prove that. You got to put them in an electronic portfolio, and then you got to have community members and board members and faculty members and family members come together, look at the final product, and say, okay, here's the standards. All right, yay or nay. Instead of the old system of where teachers are saying, I'm going to give that kid an A. Why? Because he talks a lot, because he's articulate, because he smiles a lot, I don't know. But we're tightening up that, so within another 4 years, the entire way in which you can graduate is different. And there's multiple pathways. Senate Bill 130 is a complicator, and it's a complicator because they say right now that for the next 2 years, our kids can take college classes for dual credit. Now, if you send a kid up to UVM, they're going to pay 93% of CCV tuition for that kid. If we embed a teacher here to teach a college class, and a kid gets both college, which should be a savings to the kid's family, both a college credit and a high school credit simultaneously, but we're doing embedded on our campus, it's like 35% of that cost. So, but at the end of 2 years, Dave, what's going to happen is that the governor is only promised 2 years of funding for that from the state. After that, we're supposed to absorb it into the local budget. Well, that wasn't any part of the advice we gave Montpelier, to cut off funding after 2 years. That's a political thing and when Tom talks about going and talking, opening up a dialogue with somebody in Montpelier, I mean, that's what we're talking about. And, I used to call Greg Clark all the time and stuff, and unfortunately he's not with us. And his replacement's been really receptive to hearing stuff too. But a lot of really good ideas and cost-efficient ideas got derailed at the state level above our heads. Tom's correct about that. And we are advocating very stridently for some of these things.
I commend you for that. You obviously got excellent goals from the student standpoint, and that's what we need. We need that.
That's right.
But there's the other half. How do we get the finances? I'd like to see you get out of the brick and mortar business, to be honest with you. I mean, sell this place, get rid of it. I know it's humorous, but why don't we sell it to an EB5 outfit? Let them come in and put together an after-school. If you look 25 years down the road, maybe we do move, instead gerrymander our town boundaries by students rather than by boundaries. Maybe you do that now, I don't know, but if you don't, you should.
We proposed to unify.
Yeah.
Say again?
Well, we have done the unified process at least 3 times, and it got voted down all 3 times.
Through.
Yeah,
Voted through
Yeah,
once and then
overturned.
get overturned.
3 times.
So we wanted to do the no boundary thing.
But you don't have, but maybe 25 years from now, that's the plan. And if you take to the voters, this is our plan to get there. We're gonna cut your taxes because we're gonna use modular training centers throughout the different places. And when the students here, you'd have the students,
This is exactly what we tried to
do.
indicate to the public that we were after. It's exactly what.
But did you have a plan?
Of course we had a plan.
But
There was
a
an
lot of
awful
what-
lot of thought that went into that.
And a lot of
tremendous
what
amount.
people felt was loss of local control. And that's what we kept hearing, was that they would lose local control if they went to the unified union. And it just didn't fly. Flew once, but then it was overturned.
So the modular block that you talk about is going to be wherever the student lives.
It's gonna be what?
Wherever the student lives.
Yeah, that's what it should be. It should be
Yeah.
wherever the students reside, that's where you should put that.
Yeah, whether you come to a facility like this or not will depend upon what you're trying to learn and what facility is available in your community. But, the concept of getting on a bus at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning and coming home at 3:30 is already gone away. So the building block, the modular concept that you're espousing is already in place. Students can stay at home and learn if they choose to, if their parents choose to.
No, I'm
But
not
it-
saying provide the facilities for home teaching, I'm not saying that.
They're already there. You don't have to provide it.
Yeah, no.
If a student
It
wants
sounds like
to.
that's what you were suggesting.
Yeah, that's that's what's there now. Unfortunately, we're in a transition. You also have to understand that your money doesn't go directly to us. Your money goes to the state, and then they tell us
I
what to
understand
do
all that.
and give us the money that we have.
But I
the
would
rights
think
to.
they would sign up, if you had a plan that said, hey, 25 years from now, and you should, if you're gonna go for a 25-year bond, 20-year bond, in 3 years you're going for a 20-year bond, you need to be able to tell the taxpayers, what is it business as usual, we're just gonna revote all the things that were in there before plus inflation? Or do we have some educational objectives?
David, you're confusing two separate issues here. The bond is about the physical plan. the
And that's
base.
what I'm saying, is we should
But
not
the
be building brick and
educational
mortar.
program and how that gets comported is different. That how we comport the educational program doesn't really have a bearing on whether or not the roof will continue to leak if we don't work on fixing that, or that the kitchen won't continue to work if we don't work on fixing that. As long as we decide we're gonna own this facility as a community, then, it's our responsibility to wisely maintain it. And we are developing a plan to do exactly that, which Jeffrey spoke extremely eloquently about at our last two meetings. And
Yep.
we can get to again on the agenda. But what you're talking about is different and much bigger. You're talking about.
I know.
So it's somewhat beyond the scope of a local group to effectuate the scale of change that you're talking about, even though we've tried to do it in our own district, as Lori said 3 times. So I'm not trying to downplay any of your suggestions, which are all good, but
Yep.
I do think when you bring up the idea of what are we going to approach the voters with this fall, that's a concrete discussion around the plan around the facility, and is different from the strategic vision of education as we go forward for 20 years. And Ed hit that very well, I think, but.
So we do have a plan, or the beginnings of a plan. We're waiting for the high school to provide us input for that plan. And then the 4 points that Jeff spoke about before are the seeds for that plan. For us to predict what's gonna happen in 25 years, I don't think we're gonna be.
No, I know, and I think
Good at
that
that.
whole effort is beyond your abilities, certainly beyond mine.
5 years is not that difficult.
But what I would suggest though, is maybe we go for a bond, small bond, I don't know how much it would cost, to get an expert who can go through all the demographics and see, I've looked at the data, I hear a lot of comments in here, I go back and I verify them or find out the, whatever. But look at the demographics and understand where the population shifts are, and what's the latest technology coming down the road. I mean, with all the digital animation we got, you could have Julia Childs teaching a economics, a home ec class. And you could have your best and brightest teacher here in Vergennes High School do the description and have it all digitized and presented, and she could be wearing the current clothes or whatever. You gotta be thinking what's gonna happen if we don't look at down the road using technology. It's gonna be business as usual. We're gonna be here with leaky roofs. Another 25 years, we're gonna roof on. We're gonna still have 150 teachers, whatever the number is, and we're gonna have more. And we're probably gonna go bankrupt with all this unfunded money that we're
So we
committing
have,
to.
for the last 7 years, we've been explaining to people what the demographics are in the state, to our local public. And, we talked about this, and the decrease in student population.
I've had it explained to me what the demographics are, and I've gone back and I've looked at them, and I don't get the same reading on them as some of the people here in the board speak of. If you I mean, this may be anecdotal, but I've got two friends, they don't know each other, but they live on Jersey Street, they're moving out of the state. They wanna be near their kids, their grandkids, and taxes are too high, they're going. And I met since Vergennes Day, I met two couples who have moved into the state, same age bracket, they're over 65, they're retired, and they're moving here to be near their grandkids. Same thing. The problem is, the grandkids live up in Charlotte and Shelburne. Do you think they're gonna vote to improve this school district? They could care less about this place. Be honest with you, I think. So there's nothing changed within the demographics. The people are the same, except their philosophies are changed. So you really need to understand, take someone who understands all this data, take some people who understand the data, know how to massage it, and come up with a plan for the school district. And I think the voters I would certainly go for it if we knew where this school district was going. And it can't go where it's going, or where it's been. And I got a strong feeling that's all we're gonna be doing is rubber stamping everything. You know, and I got lots of friends who are teachers and neighbors, and we just cannot afford, as a state, as a community, as taxpayers, where we've been in the past. We can't replicate that. So I don't know what I'm asking for.
No, I think I'm really happy that you came. I'm really glad that you've said all the things that you said. I don't think we're gonna solve this tonight by
No,
any
you're
means,
not.
no.
I know you're not. And I don't intend you to, but
Right.
it's gotta be on your mind when you go for these bonds, that there's gotta be an end game. And this is what the end game is supposed to look like. And you gotta tell the voters that that's what you're getting for your money.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and please come back again.
I will probably come back.
At 6 o'clock.
Huh?
At 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether I remember that.
6 o'clock. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. Stephanie?
So, Ed gave me a nice intro. We've been doing a lot of collaborative work across all areas of the school. The administrators from the entire district met last week and talked about some of it was training, professional development, new rules and regulations that we need to be made aware of. Some of it was planning, some of the planning that you were talking about. Where do we want to take this district, and how do we extend, so I think of it as vertical teaming. I mean, you know, it's pre-K or K through 12 in this district and with the elementary schools. And we need to be very intentional because we receive students from 3 different schools, and then they all join here, and, you know, there needs to be some continuity there. So that's important work to do. For me, it was very helpful, of course, being new to the district. I want to know where we've been and where we're going, and how I can contribute to that endeavor. We, the principal, all the elementary school principals, Ed and myself, along with Carol Spencer, went to the Vermont Principals Association Leadership Conference down in Killington. Is it 2 weeks ago now? And for 3 days of really refreshing and stimulating work. It's modeled on a strand. Usually there's one day of common professional development with a speaker, a keynote speaker, and that sort of sets the tone, and then the next day and a half is a professional development strand. So you pick the strand that you're interested in, and all current. And I think we all did different strands, right? I think we actually took all the strands, but it's the best professional development for administrators in the state available, and its current mine happened to be a Common Core state standards and how to introduce that, creating an entry point for teachers. So how to bring that, which is one of my goals for my the middle school staff, and so that was the leadership training, and I personally am getting ready for a middle school faculty retreat on Monday. So 24 members of the middle school faculty, we're that big now with paraeducators, will be meeting to talk about our goals for this year, for the coming years.
Is it?
It is on campus, yeah. So it's some team building activities and some discussion, coming to some common understanding around where I'm going, what my beliefs are, and what they are, what they're looking for, and what we want for students. So it's a big undertaking. I'm very excited about doing it, and so some of the other things. I wanted to talk about, in-service, you asked. So we have 4 days of in-service. Thursday, Friday is the district in-service, and that's been, we reviewed the plan at our retreat last week. A couple of the highlights of it are every single adult will be taking the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium assessment, which was the new assessment designed to measure students' abilities on the Common Core state standards. It will be officially rolled out in 2015, spring of 2015. There's a practice test available, and that's what we'll all be taking. It won't have the computer adaptive component yet for students, but it will be the actual test that students will be taking.
What grade level be education?
Well, there's an 11th grade, an 8th grade, and then a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grade level. So teachers can pick the one that they want to take. And I haven't looked to see what's available online, but it's about 2 to 3 hours of assessment. So over the course of those 2 days, we're bringing cohorts of people in and alternating that with other opportunities for teaming and professional learning communities and continuation of Rubicon Atlas endeavor, which is mapping the curriculum and Common Core work. So over those 2 days, that's what that will look like. It's pretty exciting and a little bit scary.
Can you just say what the name of the test, sorry?
It goes by the
I call it the
acronym.
Common Core, but I'm just trying to catch it right.
It goes by SBAC.
SBAC,
and it's Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, I think, that the C is. And Smarter is actually an acronym also, and I used to know what it all stood for, but it's not just Smarter as in the word smarter, it stands for something.
So it's a
Yeah.
acronym within an acronym.
Yeah, the district has actually applied to be a pilot site for the SBAC, and if we are accepted, we would not take the kneecap assessments this fall in October as scheduled, and we would actually participate in the real SBAC assessment in the spring, which would mess up our AYP thing because no one really knows how that would then determine it.
Yeah, they haven't figured out how that will affect our AYP.
Right.
No, they haven't.
It will not go through, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
100%.
Actually, what they did say, how it's gonna, we would use last year's scores. So we'd be stuck, mired for 2 years with the same score, but then it disappears.
And next year, we're supposed to be at the 500 point anyway, so it wouldn't, we already know we're going to be found lacking. But it's pretty exciting. We should hear any day now about it. I think Carol probably, she responded within minutes of the request for pilot schools to weigh in. So it's an exciting opportunity.
Just jump in here with the motivation for
Yeah.
that, because I don't want the motivation to appear to be we get out of the SU gets out of the test, because you don't gain anything really. You're just held in your same position. But Carol's feeling was that this would help leverage our preparation for actually dealing with the Common Core by sort of forcing the staff, all of us, self-imposed thing, to take the full test. We would then more fully understand the tenets of the Common Core and then do a better job teaching, ultimately resulting in better scores. So I don't want it to seem like, well, we don't have to take the test, because that really doesn't get you anywhere. It really is just a way to get us a little closer to implementation.
Yeah, you become part of the beta program, and if you're
Where do you
really
learn from?
you want to be part of the beta program.
I kind of wonder, for both of you, having seen the rudder go back and forth a little bit, the ship's always kind of going this way, but it goes this way or this way, depending on what the tests indicate from any given year. And I just wonder whether if we introduce the new test, we take what we learn from it, are we gonna move the rudder in another direction again? And that's okay, because the continuous improvement is great. But is it where you guys want the school to be?
Oh, I would say absolutely. The Common Core, I think, is a valid set of standards, and it really raises the bar on what we expect students to be able to do independently. Think critically, question, look at bias, and really be able to communicate. And they define literacy as speaking, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and being literate in all those areas. So, and being able to understand a text meaning, close reading, really using evidence to support a claim instead of moving away from sort of a personal reflective type of writing. And that doesn't mean we're not going to be doing that kind of writing, but we are going to be basing our evidence in what we're reading, combining more than one source. So the math standards focus on students. There's a word that they use in the math. It might be dispositions, but that you think like a mathematician. You use persistence. It's that whole sort of based on grit, along with specific standards of content, what students should be able to do. And then it's combined with the next generation science standards, which the way I understand them are going to change the way we think of science in disciplines. There's chemistry, there's biology, there's physics, and it's much more integrated.
And I probably couldn't disagree more. So in many ways, I think the Common Core is a great thing. But honestly, like when I'm talking with my friends from the private school sector about Common Core, the word we use with the literacy Common Core standards are duh. That's what you should have been doing all along. We've always thought the weak sister was personal reflection, and that you had to tackle our actual exposition. The math is ramped up too. The Common Core standards are great. The new science standards are going to be great. They're all great. However, as long as you continue muddling along with national compelled testing that tests just cohorts, and eventually they're going to get the data so they can see how the cohort improves over time. But for the first few years of the SBAC, you're going to be in the same position as ever. You're going to be judging a school on either a weak or a strong cohort. And Diane Ravitch is the one that designed the original No Child Left Behind for George W. Bush, and she's since backed off from the whole testing thing entirely, say nothing of the whole accountability to No Child Left Behind thing. And so, I think Common Core standards are great. They fit right into what we're doing with PBGRs, and I think the testing is the biggest waste of time we've ever done. But that's from the viewpoint of a professional educator, not somebody who's going to get fired if they do poorly on the test, which would be probably the case.
Well, the point, I'm just understanding that we use the tests strategically to improve the content that we deliver every cycle. I just would hate to see it.
But it does,
it
won't,
I
can tell you, I don't think Steph nor I would want it to steer the entire program in a direction. And Steph's real good at this, what she would say, I'm sure, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, is that what it would do, it's your report, but she's very good at what's called secondary interventions, or finding out how to fix things in real time with kids who have trouble with certain skills. It used to be RTI? MTSS, they change acronyms on me, I can't keep up. And so it wouldn't change the whole school, it would change the secondary intervention system and how we use callback, for instance, but no, it wouldn't change programmatic stuff.
I think what Common Core will do is increase our focus our attention on instructional strategies that really require students to do this authentic work. And it's right, it fits right in with our PBGRs. It's asking students to show evidence of learning as opposed to just sitting in a seat for X number of hours and earning a 71. Does that mean they got 71% of the content? So the onus shifts a little bit. So, and our job will be to guide them there. So the other 2 days of in-service are local, in-house. Some of it is being driven by our required participation in the Green Mountain Star Plan and the PBGR work. And the rest is going to be some faculty work and introducing, revisiting our PBIS, our 5 guidelines of behavior and how to sort of reinvigorate those throughout the school. And the PBGR work, reporting out on the very successful first iteration of the 8th grade capstones last year, which I think could possibly be some data we reported. I think all but 5 students successfully completed those, and those 5 came back for summer school and sale opportunities and completed them. And I got to sit on some of those final presentations. So, what else did you have? You, Jeff, right? You asked questions about something else?
My other question was about first day activities.
Oh, well, the first day of school, we're actually revisiting a practice that kind of fell to the wayside a couple of years ago, which is a welcome back to school night for primarily 7th graders, but 7th and 8th graders. So the night before school, that Tuesday night, we're having a kind of a social sort of thing with Lynn's house. We're going to do some food, and so just get kids into the building, get parents into the building. There was a big piece of that socioeconomic thing again. That there's a sort of a line there that parents have some reluctance. Some parents have some reluctance about entering the school and coming in and being a part of there. And we want to overcome that, and we want to overcome that with food. So that's Tuesday.
That's good.
Yeah. And we're in the process of planning. We do a staggered start time. 7th grade and 9th grade, our 2 major transition years, will come in for a full day. They come in at 8 o'clock, and there are special activities designed between 8 and 10 to get them, started right. And then the rest of the student body will come in at 10 o'clock. And the day will look like probably some assemblies, Grade-alike assemblies. And just that work, and then Thursday we hit the ground running with our first full regular day.
A first day day.
Yeah.
And so, we give a little bit more time for 7th and 9th graders. I mean, that's the simplistic response.
So Wednesday, only the 7th and 9th graders are in the building?
No, they come in at 8. Everybody else joins them at 10.
Oh, okay.
So we do 2 bus runs.
Yeah, we run double bus.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Great, thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
I
do actually have one thing.
I knew you did.
I'm sorry. I've been hanging out with this guy too long. We have 2 hires left to do. I don't know if it's appropriate to report that here.
We do right now.
Okay. No, but 2 more hires to make this year that we haven't had. We're not. So, a paraeducator and an RRC. I don't know how the positions.
It's half secretary and half para.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually decided if we are going to replace that.
But I think other than that, we are. There will be some nominations later, but we have those 2 hires left to do. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I also want to tell you
Okay.
how much I appreciate having Stephanie on board. I think it's as though she's been here for some time, we just didn't see her. I'm glad Ed is back, and I'm also glad that Wayne Howe is helping out in the SU office a couple days a week, as well as his regular responsibilities at Addison Central School. Stephanie took a little bit from what I was going to say, and that is that we, after tonight's meeting, we will have our full complement of staff at the high school returning, as well as new folks that are coming in. We'll hear more about that later. And just for the sake of revisiting something that we spent a lot of time on, I want to go back to David's comments earlier and say that, David, I think in our case we have a goal. Ed's pretty good at reciting that every year. I think it's 80 or 85% of our students graduate with the skills to be productive citizens and so on and so forth. And those 80% are 80% of all the kids who attend our 3 elementary schools. And our success at the high school builds upon success at the elementary. They inform what happens at the secondary, and the secondary follows up. So it's a fluid and flexible plan in order to meet that goal. But that's the process that we recommended 3 times to citizens of Addison Northwest. And unfortunately, it took a different turn than we had hoped for, so we find other ways to make that happen. That's my report.
Okay, great, thanks, Tom. All right,
That was
efficient. And Kathy's not here tonight, but we have on our agenda is a facilities project update.
Can I do Hannaford?
Should we want to do that before?
Doesn't matter.
Sure.
Okay. I could be short too. That way we can spend more time on other stuff. The things that of significance that are happening at the Hannaford Center have to do with a change in the superintendent and assistant superintendent responsibilities. I don't know how many of you know what's going on down there, but the superintendent and assistant superintendent in the past have been splitting duties between North Campus, the adult education, and the main campus. Lynn is going to start being responsible again for the main campus, and Wendy is going to take over the North Campus and adult education. So there's a little bit of a change there. Just wanted to let people know about that. There is going to be some additional work on North Campus. If anybody wants to take a look at what energy projects are going on down there, they have, this was interesting to me, they have enough solar panels in storage to put up their own solar farm. But they've been in storage now for 7 years. So they just never have been able to get enough money or enough momentum to actually build a solar farm. So now we're looking at possibly building that out in North Campus. Does everybody know where North Campus is here? Yeah, Hannaford, everybody knows where Hannaford is, right? Right next to Middlebury Union High School. There's a Hannaford Technical Center. I didn't know this, but so I just wanted to do a gut check. The North Campus is over on Exchange Street. So way over by, what's that? Yeah, Agrimark, yeah. And it's tucked way back into the corner, so if you didn't know that, you would never see it. And that's where the diesel and auto mechanic programs are primarily. And then outside of it is where most of the agriculture labs are. They're not really labs, they're fields, but I want to make sure people knew that. So that, there's this nice building over there and with lots of land. They have about 10 acres over there. And they've had this money to build a barn for a while. And they just haven't been able to, again, get enough funds and enough momentum to build the barn. So we're thinking of using that for a solar project. So there might be some synergy between what's going on in Hannaford and what things that we've talked about. We had a half-day discussion about where Hannaford Career Center is going and what needs to be done there. And David, this would probably be a good example of market trends forcing programs to happen or not to happen. It's very evident at Hannaford that if students don't sign up for a program, it's gone. The perfect example of that was a green building program, teaching kids how to be in the green construction industry. Wonderful program, great idea, but nobody signed up for it, so it's gone. So a lot of the things there, you might see more affected more quickly than you would see, because math isn't going away here, everybody signs up for math. But the same kind of philosophy could be used. You know, how many kids are actually taking math here, and how many are taking it online, or how many are going elsewhere to other schools, or to schools in the area, or to universities. So those are the kinds of things that we need to look at. So I'm agreeing with what you were asking for. But at Hannaford, it's very quick. I've only been there for 2 years. This is my second year. And I've seen 2 programs cut because no one signs up for them. So it's a problem. You don't get any continuity. Sometimes you have programs that are really deemed to be successful, but if students don't sign up for them, they can't be successful. So those are the kinds of things that are going there.
Roy, can I add one thing? Kathy asked me to solicit from this board a member to be a representative on the SU Audit Committee. Any interest?
What does it entail? What does it mean?
Well, the first meeting is in September, I can tell you that.
Anyone interested?
You're on the hook, Chris. Come on.
Okay, I'll go for it.
Very good.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so now we're going back up to the facilities project update. Who would like to do that?
Kurt, what do you guys want to do?
Doesn't matter which way you want to go with it. I think, is there anyone here who needs to be brought up to date on the roof project? Let's start there. Does everybody know what's going on? You can see the work has already started.
The what process?
The roof.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The roof, the classroom roof.
The one, yeah, the infamous roof.
Yeah.
The roof, it's being repaired.
Yeah.
In 2 words, stud or started?
It's started. I made some comments in the paper. I don't know if you read the paper, but in a very short period of time, I guess I could summarize it by saying we used the money that we were given to put a roof on the classrooms in the auditorium, and we're doing the work now. The money that we were given to do that wasn't enough to satisfy the original plan, so we made modifications to the plan. And in 2 words, I'd say the 2 words that were significant was it's a very good roof, it's not an excellent roof. So those are the modifications we had to make.
Good. Is it done?
No,
No.
it won't be done. Because we weren't allowed to do the work or plan for the work when the bonds were defeated, we had to go through the financial process again to get money. And by the time we got the money, we were too late to go out to bid until all of the bidders were basically done. So the people who we did get are excellent roofers, but they put us in a not a very comfortable position because they knew that we had to get it done and we had very little time to do it.
When will it be done?
About a month into the school year. So
Is that including the auditorium roof as well?
Yep.
Both roofs?
Yep.
Okay.
We've had to turn off the power to the roof units, so that if we have a heat wave during the construction over the academic wing, we will have no air moving inside there, and we'll have open windows with all the debris flying around. We've got a lot of issues about making sure that teachers and kids are comfortable, and we're creating contingency plans about doing more work in the library, more work in the science wing, more work outside with the bio labs, and trying to free up classrooms as best we can away from the the chaos of the roof. So just so you know, it's not that we're being babies, it's that we're used to having some air moving in through the classrooms.
Yeah, and we talked, like, the meeting you were in, I think you realized we talked about that,
Yeah.
and there's nothing we can do, it's
No.
unfortunate, but, the time, we talked about putting it off again, and that wasn't an option.
No,
So,
we're doing the right stuff.
yeah, unfortunately, that's what we had to do. So then, beyond that, Jeff and Neil and I have been talking as a committee and haven't come to any finalized plan because we're asking for input from the school as to what's next. And part of the problem here is that we're still reacting. We're not acting proactively yet. We're still reacting to things that haven't been maintained over a period of time. So unfortunately, when you're reacting and you're doing things piecemeal, it's very hard to find efficiencies or economies. So what you end up doing is what we did. The roof is a perfect example. We do it when it's inconvenient, we don't get the quality that we wanted, and we end up making concessions.
We pay more than we should.
Yeah. So that's a concession that
Yeah.
I hate to make because you end up with something that doesn't last as long. And again, using the roof as an example, we ended up accepting a 20-year warranty as opposed to a 30-year warranty. We did something that is risky, but I think has some validity to it, and we made some assumptions that will allow us to do work that's not in the plan, but that's risk that we had to take because we didn't have the money. So once we get past the stage of reacting, and I think we have probably another phase to that. I think that while that phase is being sorted out, we'll be putting together a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is, I would like it to be 20 years. But, a strategic plan is just that. It's a conceptual plan. It's based on what you know. The business acumen is, that you have to make a decision when you have to make a decision with what you know. That's reality. And so what we know now is we have to react to the issues that we have in the auditorium and in the kitchen. Once we're beyond those two things, we can start systematically, and this is what we need a strategic plan for, is systematically affecting what the future will be by planning for it. And the way that you do that is with a strategic plan. You develop your strategic plan over a period of time. You create management by objective. So the plan breeds tactics, the tactics breed objectives, and every period of time, whichever you want to look at, if it's a budgeting cycle, then it'll be annually, you look at how you did. And at the end of that annual evaluation, you rebuild another 20-year plan. So the planning process always is going on. So every year you have a 20-year plan, even though you've just finished the first year of the last 20-year plan. So it's in quality circles, it's called continuous improvement. So you're never going to say that in year 19, in year 1, I know what I'm going to be doing in year 19. So that's what we've been talking about. You guys don't let me say everything.
Yes, if I could add, I've been talking a lot. No, go ahead. We also spoke about how to communicate this to the public, and so we'll be reaching out. One of the things we really need in order to move forward is that statement of things that need to be done in this building and when from the building manager. And once we get that, we can put that together and square it with what we would intend to put into an annual budget, or what we would intend to put into a short-term bond request, or into a bond that might happen 5 or 6 years down the road when the current one is paid off. So as soon as we get that, we're gonna look to communicate out to the community. One of the things on my to-do list is actually to write a piece that restates what the 4-point plan is that Jeff put together, and indicate where the building committee and where the board is at and where the district is at with respect to the facility. And then ask for some help from the community to make another go at explaining to people why the maintenance of this facility is critical and what the pieces are that need to happen. So those are some of the next steps.
So as far as a timeline, is there been talk about a timeline?
Well, I heard we will get information in September from Bob, sort of his facility plan, and that's really what we need in order to know, you know, what an increment of $100,000 or $200,000 maintenance line item would do for next year and then the year after, and what we would, you know, necessarily critically put into a short-term bond versus defer.
So as part of, I don't know, I mean, haven't seen what Bob's doing, but is part of his report gonna be the kitchen?
Yeah, I hope so. Let me jump in. I think
What's that?
we're mixing metaphors. I think we have a really clear direction on what we're gonna try to go to the voters with, perhaps as soon as November.
Okay.
In an effort to be able to have work underway during the summer next year, so that we hit the schedule correctly, so that we're able to bid work in the winter, get the best pricing, have the luxury of scheduling, so that the majority of the work can be done while the building is not fully occupied. And that scope of work is the kitchen, it's HVAC in the auditorium, it's site work to keep water from entering the building. It may also include some energy improvements. And that piece is one that we're working on currently on 3 prongs right now in terms of heating, lighting, and the potential for generating electricity on site. So that would be the goal, would be potentially going to the voters in November for that interim scope. And all of that is repair work, other than the energy piece. And it would include elements that were part of the bond issues that were voted on by the voters in November and March last year. So it would address those. It would also provide the long-term financing for the roof repairs that are currently underway, which we financed with short-term borrowing.
So there's an important distinction there that everybody should understand is that we're reacting to things that have to be repaired, that haven't been maintained the way they should be, and those things that have been maintained the way they should be, but are at the end of their useful life. Including energy efficiencies and generating electricity and those types of things, it's like we're getting a second job, right? We're because we can't do everything we want to do with the primary sources of funds, and we don't have time to get more funds. We're looking at ways to increase revenue over a period of time, return on investment, or whatever you want to call it, by including energy and efficiencies and new systems. You generally wouldn't put new systems in while you're repairing the old ones, but we can't repair the old ones with the money that we have unless we do something like this, get a second job.
So are all the plans being re-looked at then and tweaked? I guess I'm a little unclear on that.
Yeah.
One of the big surprises to us was the cost of the roof bids relative to the costs that we were working on. So we're totally taking another look at some of those line items. And frankly, we learned some things about some of the costs that were in there that were much higher than they actually should be. Things as simple as curtains in the auditorium. We learned are much less expensive than what was listed on those sheets. So we're going to take a much more careful look at everything and be pretty cautious as we move forward and really issue what it is this place absolutely needs. But I mean, a kitchen is something.
But I guess I would encourage to talking with the staff that work in there. I mean, I'm sure that happened in the previous, but to encourage that again, because.
And we'd love if you can facilitate that to make that happen, that would be awesome.
I mean, because there are some grandiose things that really are probably not necessary. But yeah, that would be great.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeff. I apologize. Well, actually, I did.
Did you interrupt him or you did interrupt him?
I think that the two other points I would offer are, just as you've indicated, I think we need to go back out and build support. That should include faculty and staff. I think we want to get more community members involved, so that when we do go back out to the voters, if it is as soon as November, we've got a broader base of support for that effort, and that any vote we'd be taking in November would also be in context of a broader plan for the facility. So there's that. The second thing I wanted to mention in terms of communication, as one of the reasons that I asked about in-service, it was an idea that we talked about with Kathy when we met a week and a half ago, was whether there might be an opportunity as part of the in-building in-service for 15 minutes for the building committee to talk with staff and faculty and let them know that we've heard the concerns, that we have a plan, that we appreciate their cooperation and indulgence while we ask people to come to work while the roof is being repaired. We know it's not ideal. We want them to know that we're supporting the efforts of staff and faculty to work through this and where we're trying to take building improvements so that they know we're working on it. So if that's something that could be fit in, great.
Is it schedule dependent, Phil?
Yeah, it would depend on the schedule, I suppose.
We have a faculty meeting on Tuesday morning.
It's for your consideration.
It's reasonably elastic.
Yeah.
I think we've taken the first steps towards encouraging their tolerance,
Yeah.
on our level, and I'm certain it couldn't hurt. So we can look at 15 minutes during Tuesday, what did it say? 27th, Tuesday the 27th, relatively early in the morning would be the time.
We can confirm that, we'll have a better idea a little later this week.
Great.
Yeah.
If you think that would be a good idea, I think we'd like to.
I think they'd appreciate the support.
Good. That would be the point.
So, anything else from the committee? I mean, we need to go back to the discussion about the auditorium.
Yeah. Are there any questions?
I don't know. I really think that we need a strategic, long-range plan. Kurt talked about the roof and how all that happened, and continuous improvement, all that sort of thing, but those are tactical plans. You need to know where you're going, how you're gonna get there is figured out in the short term, a tactical plan to get there. And that's where your continuous improvement is gonna come from. But you need to have set some goals, financially, student skills, all those kind of things. And I think we're making a mistake by investing in brick and mortar, to be honest with you. That's how I feel about it. I think technology is gonna take us somewhere else, and we need to go somewhere else. Because of the financial cost of supporting all the teachers we've got and all the benefits, we've signed up for all that stuff and we're committed to that. But we can't continue that commitment. We need to know how we're gonna reduce some of these unfunded costs that we have. And you, as our representatives, need to take our tax burdens into consideration. Now, if it takes leadership to go to the governor and say, hey, we need some help fixing this, and ask them, what can we do as a team to fix these problems? If Vergennes is willing to do that, would you sign up to help us fund some experts to come in and tell us where we should be going? And apply it to the whole state. I'm only throwing ideas out, but you do need to have a strategic strategy on where you want to be, particularly if you're going to ask them for a 25-year bond or a 20-year bond for X millions of dollars. You're going to need to tell them this is where we want to be. At least I think you should do. You owe it to us. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, I think we just spent,
Huh?
I I believe we just spent a lot of time trying to describe to you the strategic vision of the program and the strategic vision of the
They
facility.
sounded more like tactical plans to me, to be honest with you, but.
Well, the first step is still tactical. We're still repairing.
What was that?
The next step is still going to be tactical. It's still gonna be repairing.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
we're so far behind in operations and maintenance that we can't take a strategic step until we fix what we have.
But it doesn't answer the need for where we're gonna be. Yeah, I don't wanna sound like a broken record, but I am.
It's interesting, Dave, that, you know, you come from a fiscal conservative point of view, or at least that's your mission in many ways. But your suggestion about not investing in brick and mortar is really futuristic educational talk that's going on out there. But it's nothing that we're looking at like 15 years down the road. But it is the conversation that technology is going to move us into the community more and less away from building restricted activity. I mean, we talk about that all the time. So it's interesting to hear you, you know, advocate for something that the most radical educators in the nation are advocating for, and everybody says we're not ready for that. But in the name of, you know, being a fiscal conservative, I think it's an interesting.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a plan, even if, you know, you have a plan, you work your plan, if it don't work, you change it, you know?
It's how fast can you move out of the brick and mortar paradigm? And I'm not sure, for instance, the community would be comfortable for us to just, I mean, in a short period of time to get rid of our school buildings and move into community education. But, you know, it's a legitimate idea.
I think something like that has to be done in phases.
Well, that's true.
You know,
That's
you
the
can't
fact.
just do it overnight and think
No,
that
no, it
everybody's
has to
gonna
do it
embrace it.
Yeah, right.
You know, I
No,
think
that I fully understand.
right.
I think we also face a regulatory changes that happen almost every year. So that whatever plan or whatever ideas that we've put forward or thought about, that on a regular basis, that may not work out. And that our budget process is only at a year at a time, so we don't get to plan out how we're gonna spend resources in a way that might be longer term than that. And those things are all out of our control. And so we tend to be, I think, sometimes a little bit more reactive because of the way that that's structured for us.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I think you still need to know where you're going.
I think we all
You're right.
agree. We all agree.
Right.
You're right.
You're
correct. You are correct.
So,
And I'm sorry to beat this, but it's important that you understand that the next step that we're taking is not gonna be strategic. It's gonna be.
It's a tactical effort
We have
to fix this place so we can live in it and use it to train our kids today and tomorrow and maybe 6-10 years from now. I don't know.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah.
But you still need a long-range plan if you're going after millions of dollars to the voter. If you want them to buy it.
Yep.
I think. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take so much.
no, we're happy to have you come anytime.
That you are.
No, seriously, we are. I love having these discussions. I think it's great because we never have anybody come
Yeah.
to talk about this.
I was asked to come here and express my views one time, and I think they're all saying, oh my God.
No, seriously, we're very happy to
Yeah.
have you. So-
And you asked me to think outside the box, and
Yeah.
I did that. And
And we
And you
appreciate.
know, I do want to say, David, that a lot of the things that you've said, we've heard and taken action on some of them. I mean, we listened.
that
we
part I
listened
don't.
to you At the last, during the bond discussions, during the first and the second round.
Yeah.
You know, I personally listened quite carefully to what you had to say. We certainly made some changes
Yeah.
around that, so the citizen input is critical.
And David, are you familiar at all with the Walden project?
The who?
The Walden project?
No. Oh, is that the one up? I think I've heard of it. Up in Moncton, maybe.
Right.
I don't know much about it. No.
Okay. I mean, that's just part of, I mean, it's been here for at least 10 years. 12 years? 12 years, thank you. My daughter went through that program, but it's off campus. And it's in the community, and they do a lot of different things that they do. I mean, they're not in the building. So that's just one of the things. I don't know if you can maybe get more information from Ed.
The board of that, the Walden project is under the school, but the facility the nonprofit that manages the land that it's on has had multiple conversations about other campuses for the high school and how can that, grow and be more of just,
If it works, we should replicate it, and, but again, I think the focus needs to be on diminishing the number of teachers that we have. Not that I'm not saying, if a teacher retires, don't replace them.
but then I'm gonna complain as an incoming parent.
So, Lori,
No, but
Yes.
could I ask that, because I'm not sure that we're gonna get any further with
Yeah,
this,
no,
this
yeah.
level, this
Right.
level of detail. But can I ask that we get back to the auditorium?
Yes, I want to go back.
Facilities
Yeah,
update
no,
piece,
that's what
so that
my,
we can finish the rest of the agenda?
yes, thank you. So, we need to talk about the auditorium and what Ed had mentioned, as far as I recall in my notes, is we need to discuss about the BMI inspection, which would cost $1,000. Is that right, Ed?
Yes.
Okay. How does everyone feel about that inspection happening? And then also the cleaning, the timing of the cleaning of the rigging? Do we want to wait until after the roof is done because of the particles that might fall down while it's being cleaned?
Is BMI a qualified structural engineer?
They were the firm that was, that Kathy originally contacted about safety inspection. They'd be more independent than Reynolds Curtains because they have that, they don't have that liability piece in play. So it may be worth $1,000, but
So the name of the gentleman who does the rigging is Dave Riley. Tom.
Sorry, we'll
Who
hit
does
the
the
BMI
rigging
website.
is Dave Riley.
Uh-huh.
I would call him first, just to get a preliminary read because he's very helpful and he talks to Sue all the time and he knows what's on her mind.
so I can get his number from Sue Pro.
Absolutely. With respect to sort of do we schedule a $1,000 visit or not, I almost feel that that's not quite a board decision to make. You have an operational budget and a safety concern. What I'm hearing from the public is the auditorium is closed. What? And of course that begets the whole concern about there not being the opportunity for production, which the community will not like. So I guess my take is if you feel that's where you want to be in terms of ensuring the safety of the building, that's what you should do and we should support you in that.
And I thank you. I just want to remind, it's everything altogether would be in the neighborhood of $10,000, none of which I have in our budget. I mean, the $1,000 isn't in my budget, but the other 9,000 isn't either. So, I mean, it would be one of those things where we'd be asking, Superintendent O'Brien,
I'm sorry
listen.
to interrupt you, but what's the other $9,000 for?
Well, $6,500 for
The cleaning.
carpet and upholstery, and then there's other monies involved in taking down the curtains and laundering them, and altogether, and with $1,000 inspection, comes out somewhere around $10,000. So I just want to make clear, I mean, we don't have it in the operating budget.
No.
I mean, but if it is important to our students and our community, we'll figure it out, I guess.
Reorganize.
Yeah, we'll reorganize the budget on the fly, and that will be, through with the help of Tom.
And that's a tactical response to a concern that, a burning concern that we have right now. As a representative of the community, is a $10,000 bill enough to stop the program, the music program from moving forward, the chorus program from moving forward, to incur the community's displeasure about that, to disappoint the students about that? I imagine there's other ways to turn the cranks on the budget to find it, but
You know,
it's
no-
not my place to say.
Knowing that that facility is structurally sound, that we're not facing the potential of a huge liability is enough at this point.
Yeah.
If we can clean it,
Yeah,
that's great.
that's gonna
If we can
go,
do new curtains, that's great. But we have to know, regardless, that the facility is safe.
And, you know, we're just mentioning, one of the decisions I might have to make is, and with staff is, and Tom and Wayne, everybody, is just like, do we put off the, you know, cleaning, doing the upper cleaning around the rigging area and around the stage area until after the roof work's done?
Right.
And that may be something we'll postpone, but we don't want people thinking we're dragging our feet on the cleaning issue.
right,
If in fact we're gonna get a half a ton of debris sifting down on our heads, which we don't know if there's gonna be any, but
it's totally fair, but a conversation between the building manager and you and
Yeah.
the contractors who are doing the roof work would probably serve to tee up the optimal timing, and then, you know, when production is gonna happen, when the facility is needed, you know.
yeah,
all
it's,
that.
we probably still can get the cleaning done before production if we get everything else squared away. But Tom's right, we need to know that it's safe first. I don't want anybody, I don't want my librarian getting crushed by that screen because the rigging's faulty. He's already had some
Close calls.
close calls.
So is it a raised ceiling in there?
Yes, it's very,
Okay.
very.
Has the ceiling ever been removed and cleaned? Then there will be debris.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
common sense says, yeah.
Okay.
So you know, so do you understand, or I mean, as far as your direction, what you're going to do, like you're gonna call this guy David Riley and,
Yeah, I've already emailed Bob to see what the status of the BMI inspection is, to see for sure if we have actually scheduled one, or if we're just in negotiation for one. And that's gonna be cleared up by the morning, and then we'll get a hold of Dave Riley and see what his feelings are. I will re-interview Susan and Karen to make sure that they're not, you know, exaggerating the danger and the trepidation that they feel sometimes. For instance, one of the things they came in with, I think they got 6 or 8 brand new lights from Middlebury College that are about that high, about this big around. I don't think you can put, right now, you're not putting them up, you know, you're not gonna use them. You're not gonna increase the load on the rigging. But if the guy says it's safe, so.
so do you feel as though we've had enough discussion about it from?
No, I do. I mean, it doesn't really change the direction too much, except I really appreciate the name of Dave Riley, because I don't know him from Adam.
Well, he's trained every one of your students who's learned how to run a whiteboard and that soundboard and making production happen. He's
Cool.
a key guy. I guess, so that I can respond to what I'm hearing, will that facility be available to the educational program come day one of school?
Assuming it's structurally.
If BMI says it's safe, yeah. It might be dirty.
It won't be
So
clean.
I think that the other way to perhaps frame that is, rather than asking BMI for a specific opinion, maybe we're framing it as, you know, what do we need to do to be able to operate this fall? And
Sure.
if that's the question, we may get a different response than asking someone to put, you know, their imprimatur on a yes/no answer.
Sure.
Okay?
That
This
makes
is part
sense.
of a long-range plan, and what we need to do is be operational this fall. All the things you're doing are progress. So we really are moving from, frankly, a situation where we didn't do anything, we didn't clean it, we didn't touch it, to, you know, we've picked up the rug, there's some ugly stuff, and now we're dealing with it. And this is what dealing with it sounds like. But what we don't want to do is just set ourselves up for failure. So, you know, I think this has been blown up a little bit more than perhaps it needed to be. And so in terms of asking anybody else to come in and give us an opinion, I would frame it as, we need to be in here this fall for the school year, using it. What do we need to do to make it safe? Not framing it as, would you accept this? Because that leads to a different answer.
Pete, did you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there was ever a decision in terms of middle school gym, where are we with the bleachers? Last I knew, they were being ripped out. They still haven't been ripped out. I don't know. Right now I've got bleachers that I can't use. I've got a floor that needs to be waxed because you can barely stand up on it when you're playing basketball because it's going on its third year. And I have no idea what's happening with it.
We're at the point where I think we were talking with Kathy. No, I don't
The
know.
last board meeting I was at, there
We
was
had discussed,
We discussed
there
it.
was an option on the table for a lease arrangement
Right.
to the tune of $15,000 or $17,000 a year for a 5-year lease to buy option,
We mentioned that last.
which really that's also money that's not in the budget and is money that could be programmed into next year's budget.
So-
Again, I gotta jump, this has been blown out of proportion. If they're unsafe, they either come out or lock them so they can't be used. It's, $55,000, we're gonna put it in next year's budget and replace them. We need an interim solution so that we're using the facility to its greatest extent possible with what we have. We're not gonna we did make a decision at the last meeting, we're not gonna lease bleachers. We're just, and it's not big enough that we're gonna put it in a bond for 20 years and pay interest on it. We're gonna put the money in the budget in the coming year. So what we need is a solution that keeps us safe for the coming school year.
Okay, and I'm not sure that anybody's sold that a chaining them is particularly safe, but we don't have the time at this point to tear them out. Once, for some reason, in a conversation with Kathy recently, she was looking at December as the time to rip them out. And, but it's not as simple as that because you've got the heating elements in back of them. I mean, she was thinking in pie in the sky that most of our basketball games will come after December, and that we'd be able to accommodate more people. And frankly, what we'd have to do is box those heating elements in because they're dangerous, they're sharp, they got the fins. And we'd have to box those in or have a tinsmith come in and metal them in. I think wood would be fine with a grid on top. And that would be a solution until we could get those. Would it be fun communicating that with the public? Probably not. Would we have to buy some folding chairs maybe to accommodate older parents? Sure. I don't know where that puts us, and we haven't had an opportunity to talk to Peter about it. But that's sort of been up in the air because we've been waiting. That's the first I've heard that we're not going to enter into a lease agreement for this year.
We talked about that.
Jeff answered the question I was looking at. That was the last board meeting, whether or not.
Right.
Yep.
I think there
So
was
that's the
some
first I heard.
confusion.
So that's great. I mean, at least I know.
Yep.
Thank you.
So why can they not be chained?
Because I don't know what, we're feeling that, you're still gonna get kids crawling up on them.
Yep. They'll
And-
crawl, they'll stand on desks too.
Right.
So, we can't keep people from climbing up on stuff. What we can do is the issue that was explained to us was it was unsafe in terms of stepping up and the space between them. So if they're closed and up against the wall and they're not being operated, we've addressed the immediate concern. We don't spend the money for a temporary solution to cover the heating element, and we put the money in the budget for the following year to just buy new bleachers and put them in the space. At our June meeting, it was explained that we had adequate folding chairs and that we could seat people in there, and that's our interim solution. We're gonna use the facility the best we can.
Yeah, I wouldn't promise adequate numerically, but I would promise that there's some. And we would try, and the most economic solutions is to chain them and keep them chained and never move them, and not remove them in December, honestly. And just
Yeah,
keep
that's
them until
what it
next year,
sounds
then tear them
like.
out
Yeah.
next summer.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
That's,
Yeah.
So you're able to do the floor.
I'll have to have that conversation with Bob.
It is getting slick, Peter.
But you can still do the floor even if the bleachers are where they presently are.
Yeah, before I entered into that conversation, I was just waiting to see what the board had decided about the leasing, because I hadn't heard that it was decided in July or whatever. I just hadn't heard what the answer was. So.
So that's gonna have to come on a letter.
Okay. Okay, Vergennes. Thank you. So anything else on the facilities? Project update, anything else? Okay, we can go on? Okay.
I just would like to compliment the people I'm working with, they're doing a great job.
Thank you for doing this, okay, so we need to, the bills.
Okay, for,
We need a motion and,
motion for $1,362,206.00.
is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
all good?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So remember when you sign it, you sign your name and date it, please. So Tom, do you want to talk about the,
Personal.
yeah,
Nothing on policy?
Pardon me?
Nothing on policy?
Nothing on policy.
I'm just catching.
Can I just ask a question just for your consideration, thinking ahead in terms of policy? So part of the plan we've talked about for the facility is increasing the level of funding in our operating budget for maintenance, but also creating capital reserves to deal with the items we know will wear out. So my question is whether, Tom, that might be something that could be embodied in a policy so that it has a life beyond these board members. Because if we're gonna go out to the community and say, you know, we're not gonna come back to you again to replace the kitchen after everything's broken, we're gonna put money aside every year, that's a policy, in my mind, that needs to be written down and adhered to by future boards as well. So I'd ask if there's precedent for that, you know, how other districts deal with that, and if that's an appropriate avenue to use to try to achieve that.
It is.
Okay, great.
It has been.
Great.
thank you, John.
Hiring recommendations, we have several. The first is to employ Karen Torrey Cleland at a 50% contract as a special educator. That's the other half of Kara Griswold, who's working with Betty Lewis in the central office. I'm going to go through all of these. The second is middle school social studies. Chris Sheehan. Chris had been a student teacher with us. Intern. Recommended for the middle school social studies position. In the transition program, that was a program that Jen Lawson had established a couple of years ago. That's going to be shared between Jeff Myers at 60% and a reading teacher by the name of Deb Tracht, Tracht, at 50%. We finally have been able to hire a speech-language pathologist rather than contracting for those services on a regular basis with a full-time SLP by the name of Wendy Watson-Agnew. And then 2.6 para-educators, Peter Straub, Dan Bennett, Ryan Adrian, who would be 60%, rounds out the group that we're recommending for employment in the coming year.
When I deliver you these minutes, will you be able to fill in the names
Okay.
with their spelling?
Yep.
How about the high school English position?
I don't see it on here.
Sabrina?
Sabrina,
Move to
Sure.
adjourn.
has she been already?
Didn't we talk about
Sabrina
that
Case?
last time?
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
think
we've
she was
already-
in.
She was in.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't,
That was June.
I just didn't want to slip it.
We have two resignations. Two resignations.
Why don't we do the hiring first? And
Okay. So are you looking for a motion to approve the hiring?
please.
Move to approve the slate as included.
So second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Catch that? Yes, I do have discussion, but
Okay.
for catch, so.
From a budget perspective, in terms of staffing, how does this put us on track? Light, heavy?
I'd say a little over light.
Little light.
It's not too heavy. The one piece that is heavy is the SLP,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's weighed against some of the other positions that were recommended. They're not all veteran staff.
Mm-hmm.
The SLP, my recollection is that contracting those from CSACs were really expensive, right? And so are we achieving some efficiency by employing one ourselves?
I think in the long term we will. Is it 4 days, 5, no, 4?
Or haven't heard the new one?
Yeah, 5 days a week at the high school. Previously, we've contracted with an SLP and also had an SLPA to try and meet the needs. That got spendy real quick.
Right, that's what I remember.
And as I said earlier, or at least alluded to, finding an SLP available, willing to take the position is a find.
And if I can speak on, we've already hired Sabrina, so I guess that's moved. And Chris Sheehan, they are exactly what you're looking for. They have a limited number of years on the salary scale, but they both have their masters. I mean, Chris has got his, doctorate in jurisprudence. I mean, so, he's a member of the Vermont Bar who wants to teach. So we've gotten two tremendous bargains, because when principals look to hire, the best bargain in the world is somebody with under 10 years experience, already has a master's, so you're not gonna have to pay for their master's. You'll pay a lesser amount for professional development over the next 8 years, for instance. So these are real bargains, and they're real, I think, smart hires. And Chris
Energetic.
Any other,
Energetic folks, yeah.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm not sure if it's included in your packet, but we had 2 resignations. Both of them were paraeducator positions. One is from Jill Grant, who was working in RRC as a behavior assistant, special ed secretary, and she is leaving to pursue a job offer at the Addison County Sheriff's Department. So we thank Jill for her service and wish her the best.
Yep.
Also, Kim Lunna, who has been with the high school the past 5 years as a paraeducator. After careful consideration, she decided to accept a professional teaching position, which I think was her goal anyway. And she got the job at Bellows Falls Union High School, and will be moving to Southern Vermont. And the same, recommend accepting the resignation with appreciation. And then the third is, I think it might be in your materials. If not, you're all aware that Don Jochum stepped
Well,
down.
we have some coaches.
Excuse me.
Coaches for both.
Oh, okay. We have 2 coaches, yeah. I just wanted to mention Don's
Oh, okay.
departure. Did you have it on? Okay, I see what you're doing. 2 others. Recommending for fall coaches for JV boys soccer, Jake Tracy, and for middle school cross country, Jeff Kaufman, who was with us earlier this evening.
Do we need to move them, right?
Yeah.
Right, so move that, we accept those recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Tom, did you want
I just wanted to mention, my packet has an email from Don.
to? Okay, I didn't print mine out.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, in the same vein, that we did, staff who was leaving to wish Don well in appreciation of the work that he's done in this district for over 10 years, and regret his resignation.
Yes,
I think we'll all,
we definitely regret his resignation.
we do regret his
It's
resignation.
understandable, having read what he had to say.
Yep.
It's understandable.
And he's been on the board for a long, long
He's
time.
carried a lot of water for a long time.
Yeah, but we all wish him well. So,
So what do we do?
that being said, to fill the Addison spot, and that process needs to happen. I am in favor of waiting until we get the Addison position filled and then reconfigure the board as we are. I'm vice chair right now. I will be gone for the meeting in September and October, which means that, Neil, you would be running the meeting, those two meetings. And I don't know when. Do we have any idea? We don't really have any idea of when we'll be able to replace the person from Madison.
I don't know when, but I would say it will be as soon as possible.
Has
They're gonna move on it.
there been, have you reached out to them, or you have reached out?
So that's the select board's responsibility?
School board.
Oh, it's the school board's
The Addison
responsibility.
Central School.
Oh, so it'll be done relatively quickly then.
I anticipate so, yeah.
So they meet,
They meet Thursday of this week.
Do you know if they have a name in mind?
No.
Without saying who that may be, I mean, no. So, what, if you're not gonna be here for the next 2 months, and my understanding is you're not running next
no,
spring, right?
no, correct.
So how long do we wait before doing a reorganization?
I think we can, I'd like to see that we reorganize as soon as that other person is on board from Addison. Which sounds like it could happen, it might happen while I'm gone. I mean, that's a possibility. I would hope it happened soon.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Does anyone else have anything else?
I wasn't sure whether you wanted to kind of just float it through to town meeting.
No,
And I'm
no.
not sure I would favor that.
No. I think it'd be best if we can move forward as quickly as possible, but I'm just, my opinion would be that we have someone from Addison be on the board to be able to move forward, and that sounds like it could happen really quickly.
I think if it doesn't happen in a fairly reasonable period of time, then we might come back and revisit.
Yeah.
Make the change.
I guess the question that occurs to me is if we're waiting on an unknown and maybe it happens quickly, we come back in September, then you're not here.
Right.
And I'm not sure I see the advantage to that. So now we're not taking action for someone that we don't know who isn't here. Waiting for a time when someone who we do know
It's
won't be here.
Right.
I'm not sure I see the advantage to that. Just.
Let's see what you're saying, sort of.
I think there's value to the board to reorganizing, welcoming a new member when appropriate. It's unlikely that they will be a candidate for chair. I think that's a reasonable assumption, and therefore it doesn't change how we might proceed. And I think there's so much work to be done here that to have any drift, I think, is not in the best interest of the school or the board. That's my opinion.
That's your, do we want to go around and hear other people's opinion?
I think the pro is there's no one here from Addison to participate in reorganization. So that's what I think the intent is for waiting. But I think the con is, we're going to spend another month, deciding something that could be decided tonight. But I don't think a lot of damage is done in 30 days.
No, I think we can wait till September, but then you're
But
not
I
here in
think
September. That's what I'm thinking.
I know, but
just let me finish. What I think we should do is make a commitment that we will be reorganizing in September, whether or not we have a person from Addison on board. So with that, we, have a way forward, and we're not waiting for someone we don't know to show up, and knowing that someone we do know is not showing up.
Okay, Lori, are you okay with
being here?
participating?
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
And can we reorganize if there were only 4 of us at a meeting?
That's a quorum.
Yeah, 4.
4 is a quorum.
I'm just one.
You're
Yeah.
not really here for, you would be here,
Mhm.
so,
Why would there only be 4?
right.
Kurt, Chris. Oh, that's fine.
Right, okay, all right, plus,
Sorry.
unknown Addison person potentially.
Yeah, so we either have 6 or 5. Unless we all get hit by a beer truck tonight.
From your perspective?
Well, I see the work of the board pretty clearly right now for the next couple of months. You've got a budget that's going to be coming in front of you soon, and all the issues that go with that. We've got to participate in negotiations, and I still need representatives from this board. I don't see those 2 months as turning the ship too far one way or the other, and anybody on this board right now, I think, could fill in, whether it's Neil as clerk or one of the other members, and wait until you have the full contingent. But
And I apologize that I can't be here for this two meetings.
Just to your point, Tom, those things, those big things that are out there, the budget, the negotiations, this facility, speak to the need for some leadership.
Yep.
And I would be uncomfortable having more than a 4-week void, to be honest.
So why don't, like Kurt said, do the rearranging in September?
September 9th.
Right.
So it's early in the month.
So we should just lift that to the top of the agenda and run that first, and allow whoever's gonna be the new vice or the new chair to just run the thing.
I think that sounds reasonable. So, do we need an executive session?
we do not.
Okay, great. So our next scheduled meeting, unfortunately I will not be there, is on September 9th at 6 o'clock. And then we have an Addison Northwest Supervisory Union Board meeting here at 6:30 on the 25th, and I will be there at that one.
Excellent.
There's nothing else?
The signatures still.
Oh,
There
signatures.
are more spots than that I've never seen before.
Really?
We're spending $1 million.
Feel like it.
So, that's
Okay,
it.
so we are adjourned? Are we adjourned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.